Alright, welcome finally to another Smite comprehensive guide. It's been a while. I actually did record this video before, about a year ago, and the file got corrupted, and so I got distracted with other projects, like playing Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Alright, but now we're going to go over Apollo, and this is going to be a pretty short one. He's pretty simple. He's one of the older gods. It's the newer gods that you have to worry about being a bit more complex. So first of all, we're going to go over his passive. Alright, Apollo's passive is Audacity, which is a buff that stacks. So after 10 successful basic attacks, Apollo gains Audacity, increasing his attack speed by 100% for the next 5 basic attacks, hit or miss, he makes. Apollo also gains 2 stacks of Audacity for each successful damaging ability on enemy gods. So he gets 2 stacks for an ability and 1 stack for each basic attack that hits. So you have 2 options. You can build him for ability damage or basic attack damage. Since this buffs your attack speed and it stims your basic attacks, you're probably better off building towards your attack damage rather than your ability damage. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So his 1 is a line that does physical damage. It's 90 to 330 plus 80% of physical power, and it's just a line. It's very simple. If you get hit by it, you take damage. It says long range line. It's really not that long, but it's not bad. Just bump the mic. Alright, next we have Serenade. Apollo uses his amazing voice to mesmerize all nearby enemies and bolster himself with additional physical protections. Any damage done breaks the effect. So Mez is also called Sleep. I believe they're the same statuses. I could be entirely wrong, but we need to double check that. It is nice getting back into Smite, but there are some things that I'm starting to forget. So I will admit that. But we'll see in just a moment. His Mez at level 1 of this ability is 1.5 seconds, and that goes all the way up to 2.3 seconds at the height of that ability. The physical protections granted are 15 to 35, and then the buff lasts for about 5 seconds. So there you go. And that is when you cast it, right? So it's not going to be cast 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's right when you cast is when that timer is going to start. Alright, so his third ability is a dash. It's a very simple dash, but there's a little added bonus. At the end of the slide, the movement speed is decreased for enemies and increased for himself and allies. So if you've got, you know, an ally Arachne and an enemy Odin, and they're fighting, and you roll over and land right in between them, the Arachne is going to get a boost to movement speed, and the Odin is going to be slowed. But just a little bit. So that's going to do 70 to 250% of your, plus 60% of your physical power. And that's, like I said, it's going to scale the higher your level is. The movement speed buff and debuff also changes depending on your amount of levels you've put into this ability. So that's 15 to 25%. And then that's going to last for 3 seconds. So it's a 3-second slow for enemies, but a 3-second haste for teammates. It's very useful, actually. Actually, there's a little video here, but I'm going to be going into jungle practice anyways. Wow, look at that quality. Okay. Across the sky. So Apollo rides his chariot across the sky, choosing when to land, dealing damage every 0.2 seconds for 0.8 seconds as he lands, so 4 ticks. Enemies hit by the last tick of the landing will also be knocked up. That's 70 to 170 plus 40% times 4 if you hit every tick. So you've got 4 ticks. You're doing 70 to 170 plus 40%. Alright, so Apollo is an interesting case. He, at max level, he's got an okay damage amount, but he's actually got a really high health stat for a hunter. And then his base protections are alright, but then you're taking into account the protections he gets from his 2, which are physical protections, not magical protections. And he actually can kind of box, depending on the build. I will say that's not the best way to play him. It seems like usually a simple crit build or a simple pen build are all you really need, but you can also do ability damage or movement speed if you're trying to mess around a little bit. And these things can work. I typically would only do those meme builds in something like Arena, but you don't necessarily have to if it can work. The game is, after all, about counter building. So as long as you can counter build the enemy, you're fine. And you don't really need to worry about doing anything else, really. If you end up building Apollo full tank, well, you know, if it works, it's not stupid. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the jungle. And we are going to see what we see with Apollo. With Amazon Ka, we had some ridiculous damage numbers, but those were a year ago. This is a whole new season. I would almost say that watching those older guide videos, you might want to be a bit cautious considering the things that you're seeing and the numbers you're seeing, because this game changes over time. It's a MOBA. It gets updates, it gets balance patches, things get added. So some of the items that were in the build for Amazon Ka may not even be in the game anymore. So you got to keep that in mind when you're watching those older guide videos. That said, the abilities don't change, and I didn't, you know, I didn't go over any gods that have changed, like say Loki or Odin. I haven't done guides for them yet anyways. You'd think I would have started with the like most picked gods first, but for some reason I decided I was doing an alphabetical order, and I'm going to stick to that. Alright, and so very basic, first things first. If you're going for a movement, or not a movement speed, attack speed or a pen build, you probably want to go ahead and go with the Hunter's Blessing. You do have a second option in the Warrior's Blessing, and the Attacker's Blessing is also something that you can do for that build, though I don't recommend it because it's really only for lane damage. Warriors and Hunter's Blessing will give you bonuses for enemy god attacking. So you've got these two as your main options. This is also here, and you know, this is an option if you're playing Arena. I wouldn't fuck around too much in non-Arena game modes, but I would mostly stick with Warriors or Hunters. So starting with Hunter's Blessing, I would probably next go into Boots, and you can either do Talaria Boots or Warrior Tabby, because this is going to be the pen build. Alright, so next, we're going to build straight into Jotuns. And I know this is a bit, not controversial per se, but some people might not agree with me to start Jotuns right away. They would say maybe you want to get Aussie first, but it depends on the role you're playing, because you can solo lane Apollo. I'm not idle. You can solo lane Apollo. You really shouldn't, but you can. It's doable. I've seen it done a million times. It actually works quite often, depending on who you're fighting. And if you're solo laning against a Terra or somebody like that, you're going to lose. But, you know, Apollo can handle it. But if you're solo laning Apollo, you want to get lifesteal early. So that's when you would get Aussie first. But instead, I'm getting Aussie third. Or, sorry, not first. You're getting Aussie second. Instead, I'm getting Aussie third for this build. Alright. So after that, we're going to be looking at these three. So there are a lot of options with stacking, and it's very easy to just pick a random item and just go with it. And actually that tends to be pretty effective, right? But Transcendence is the kind of item that you want to build early. If you build it late, you're really not going to get the maximum efficiency out of it. Now, if you get late in game and you're buying your last item and you're thinking, oh, I could just grab Transcendence, it's not really going to help you that much unless you can build stacks that fast. Which sometimes you can if you build Odysseus Bow or something. But most people can't. So here's something that I want to toss your way. So Apollo's abilities stack his passive faster, okay? And if you're doing a penetration build, you're probably going to have a slightly lower attack speed, which means you want to stack up your passive faster so you can shoot faster. So you have these two options right here. You have Hydra's Lament and you have Heartseeker. If you're charging your passive with your damaging abilities, Hydra's Lament might just be the choice, because your basic attack after using an ability will grant you an additional 40% damage, which is nice. And that's why I'm very tempted to grab this most of the time. Another good item, at least a final item, is this new tree that they've added. And you can see for Apollo, he gets Pridwen or Fail Not, and this is entirely dependent on your situation. This is a pen build, so finally I would build Fail Not, but I would replace my Blessing with Fail Not. This is the kind of final piece of a puzzle that you wouldn't normally get. So another thing to think about is the fact that people tend to use Apollo's ultimate as a get out of jail free card, basically, to just press the button and get out of a team fight that's not going your way. You are 1v1ing an assassin in jungle, or you're cornered, and you know you're not going to win that fight, you press 4 and you get out, and that's fine. But sometimes you want to use it to init, to join a team fight, to help a teammate in the jungle. Say you're in arena and someone's getting jumped in camps or whatever, you can do that, alright? And that's when you would get Fail Not. It depends on when you're using your ultimate. So if you're using your ultimate to get away from people, Fail Not's probably not the best choice. What might just be the best choice is Pridwen. And now this one's a little bit weird because you only get protections for 5 seconds and you get a shield when your ability's finished casting, which means it doesn't give you the shield right away. But you also get this nice CDR, and if you're going to go up in the middle of a fight and come straight back down, now you have a little bit of bonus damage that you can take. The only downside is that it equals your protections. So that shield might not be much if your Apollo isn't very tanky. So it's an option, but it's not necessarily a good option. You have to consider your options. That's why when I'm doing these guides, at least right now, I'm trying to shift more into a counter building mindset, I guess, so to speak. You want to think about what's going on and what you need more than just what I'm telling you to buy. So in previous guides, I would just buy a bunch of things in pre-builts that I had designed before the video started, and I would say, hey, just build this for this and build this for that. And like, that's fun and all, but you can't necessarily depend on that. So you got to be able to change up your build when it's time. So here is something that I like to build on my hunters, especially these slightly tankier hunters. I know people are probably hearing slightly tankier hunter and they're thinking, Apollo, slightly tanky, are you crazy? But I've seen a tanky Apollo. It was the most disgusting thing I've seen in my life. He had Bloodforge, Breastplate of Valor, Warrior Tabby, and then he went into... No, he had Transcendence as well. I think he had one of the shields. I can't remember, obviously, but it was kind of impressive. So here I would buy Shifter's Shield, and then I would finish with Fail Not, or Titan's Bane. Titan's Bane is fantastic because it gives you an additional 20% physical penetration on abilities. And then it gives you this also. Here. It gives you this. So we're going to see these damage numbers with this pen build with a little bit of protections. Alright, but first, actually, I wanted to show you my CC. So here's this Odin, and you can see the area at the end of this dash. The area at the end of this dash is where that slow is going to apply, and you'll actually see the icon pop up right down here. You'll see the icon pop up that'll tell you how many seconds of speed you have left. It's nothing incredible. It's just a nice little tiny boost. All right, about 25%. So if I roll into this Odin, he's going to be slightly slowed, and I'm going to be sped up a little bit. There was that little ability counter down here, right? Let's look at the Mez. So within this middle circle, if I Mez him, boom, he gets put to sleep, basically. It's not technically a stun, but it functions basically the same way. But here's the catch with Mesmerize as a status effect, and you'll see this, is that if you Mez someone, it ends early when they take damage. So, if you're trying to Mez someone to get away, don't turn around and shoot them, or throw your line ability at them while they're Mez. Don't be doing this, because you're actually going to get them out just a little bit faster, and they'll be able to get back to pursuing you sooner. It's not necessarily a good idea. So we're looking at this Fail Not. When your ultimate ability has finished casting, your next ability or basic attack within 8 seconds is that damages an enemy god, marks them, increasing the chance you and your allies can land a critical strike by 50% for 10 seconds. That can only occur every 45 seconds, which is fine. Because ultimate abilities, you know, typically have a cooldown period of about a minute or so. His takes 66 seconds with the CDR that I have. Alright, so really quick, I want to show you that proc, actually, and why Fail Not's actually a pretty decent item to build on him. It's a little bit better when you're actually using a crit build. This is not a crit build, but you can see I actually gain like a crit chance, even though I don't have crit built in. So And here's that that passive triggering. So for 5, just like that. And I've got 1 charge on my passive right now. If I hit him with this, I get 2. Actually, is that functioning correctly? How many charges does it take? 10. Yeah, okay. No, that's right. That's the calculation's correct. The good thing about this passive, though, is that you can charge it up just by poking, and then you can just hang on to it. And then you can just wait until the time is right, and then just unload on somebody. And now, as a hunter, your job is to keep fire on the enemy. So you're not really expected to just stop shooting so you can hold a little boost. But, you know, you can. So, this is a fun little thing to note, is that the minions actually do charge your passive too, which is fantastic. Okay, so getting rid of this build, is there a reset build button? That'd be really nice if they did that. Of course they didn't. Okay. So, I want to show you something. So, instead of Warrior Tabby, I'm actually going to go ahead and get Ninja Tabby. And the reason why I'm doing this is to show you the attack speed build that I would typically go with without a final item. I do like Talaria boots, but it's more of a meme thing. People don't really respect Talaria boots. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to get Crusher. And let's just throw some random item on here. How about Chinsai? Where is Chinsai? Here it is. Is this what I think it is? Yes. So usually with a attack speed build like this, you would actually probably go with something more like crit based. I didn't do that because that's not what I'm trying to demonstrate. You can actually see I have a much lower damage output as well because I'm missing that crit. When you have a attack speed build, you're depending on hitting as many crits as possible usually. Just the attack speed itself is not good enough. But I just wanted to see something. Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up. That Odysseus bow, the lightning from Odysseus bow, does not give you additional stacks to your passive. I think at one point it did. There is one thing I'm not sure of that I kind of want to check, and that's whether or not Golden Blade actually charges the passive any faster. But it looks like it's melee characters only, so I'm kind of silly for thinking that it's not. Okay, so really quick, I'm going to show a really basic scenario where you would be using Apollo and how you would use him. So we're going to grab Jotun's Wrath. And again, here's something I wanted to cover as well. With Rage, this is a weapon, or an item, that you see full use of after it's stacked up. So once Rage is evolved, that's when you can see its full damage potential. Deathbringer is short term, it's at the end of the game, you can full buy it. This is something that you grab all at once, and that's the best way to use it. Malice is a bit more situational. Successfully hitting an enemy god with a critical strike will subtract 3 seconds from all your abilities currently on cooldown. And it can only happen every 5 seconds. And that's cool and all, but it's not quite as useful as raining fire on them. So normally I would have gotten this maybe 3rd item, but we don't have that luxury right now. So we're going to spawn ourselves a Neathbot, and you can see right here I've grabbed both Sunder and Belt of Frenzy, and that's just to show you because Belt of Frenzy gives you an attack speed and damage buff, while Sundering Spear takes a bunch of damage out of them and destroys their shields. It also, I think, it either takes away protections or increases damage taken. Increases damage taken. So we'll show it with the Bolt of... here. So now she's taking increased damage, and you can see that my damage output is actually not that high. And the reason for that is because I'm more concerned with getting shots downrange to charge up my passive. But the way you can get some huge damage numbers is we're going to spawn in one more. With the Mez, end that quickly. So here you can see the quite low damage numbers of an attack speed build. And this is what I'm trying to push, is that if I build this build just a little bit smarter, let me ult her really quick, she needs to get ulted. There's the ticks of damage on that ult, you follow up with the mez. That little moment gives both you a second to think, recollect, and attack, but it also gives your enemy a second to reassess, so be careful with the mez. It's a long amount of time for them to figure out how to get away from you. So, to increase the damage on this build, you can simply take this off, and then you can add almost whatever you want. I would typically go for something like Crusher, or maybe even just Deathbringer, and that's actually going to knock our damage up a little bit more. We are going to lose a little bit of attack speed, but that's fine. This is Apollo. He's going to get that little buff. But we can do better than that. We can do better than that. So the thing about the Wind Demon and why it's so commonly used is because critical hits provide you 10% physical protection and increase attack and movement speed by 20%, which is great. It's basically the hastened effect for hunters, which you can also get with Atalanta's Bow. But where is what am I thinking of? Out of curiosity, actually, I want to see this because I don't actually know. Yeah, okay, that's about what I thought. So what I wanted to show was that if you just simply switch out Ninja Tabby for Warrior Tabby, and we're going to grab Wind Demon again. So now we're doing 640, and let's see, 700 crits. Sustained crits are going to do more damage, obviously. This is something that would kill him pretty quick. I'm going to actually demonstrate this on Neith really quick because she likes to die. That's why she's here. So there you can see she's been quite demolished. So now what I want to do is I want to switch out one of these items in my build for something that's lifesteal. So out of all of these items, you got to consider which one is the least relevant. The thing with Jotuns is that it's giving me CDR, penetration, and physical power. This mana is also going to help me with my ultimate. So that's why I kind of want to keep Jotuns around. Ichaival gives me 30% attack speed bonus and 30 power, and it increases my physical power when I attack enemies, which is pretty nice. The only thing here that doesn't give me anything special is Warrior Tabby, which is why usually a final item would look something like this, and you might do something like this. Do not forget about these elixirs, they're actually pretty useful. So now I've got the movement speed, actually slightly more movement speed than a boot would give me, and I can come in here, and so when I kill Neith, I actually get myself a shield, and I'm lifestealing. So the problem with Bloodforge is that I can sustain myself entirely off of just holding down left click. So I can sit here and farm my enemies as long as I can keep hitting my basic attacks. Now the problem with that is that you will most certainly get CC'd. You will most certainly get caught out. You will most certainly die eventually. I mean, everyone dies, right? So that's the thing with this setup, is that you're just trying to crap out damage as fast as possible. And the thing about this is you may say, okay, well you can't really break down the Ymir that fast. Okay, but surely Guan Yu's got heals, right? Yeah, because it's a hybrid. That's what's great about Apollo, though, is that these abilities will work in your favor as well. So if I roll in and slow him down, he'll have a harder time keeping up with me. I could shoot him and mez him. Oh, he took damage there. I wanted to show the mez, because you can cancel enemy abilities as long as they're not CC immune. It's a very timing-based thing. But I've even pulled people out of leaps with the mez. Alright, so see, like that, boom, canceled. And it's on cooldown. Boom. So, like I said before, Apollo is very basic. You hold down left click, you win. But you can also mix in his abilities very easily. He has a number of AA cancels you can perform, where you cancel your ability early after shooting out the damaging part, so that you can do damage and follow up with attacks faster. So what I'm doing is I'm holding left click, pressing 1, and right clicking so that I can immediately start shooting again. Now, I don't know if this is a proper AA cancel, but this is what I've been calling AA canceling, and it's very effective, so I do recommend doing it. I'll show that one time without, you know, you know, shooting the hell out of Guan Yu. So what we're doing is we're holding left click, and then we're pressing Q and pressing right click. But that Q is still going out, so that damage is still getting felt, but I'm able to attack sooner because I canceled the animation. To do this in other gods, you have to learn the abilities. It just takes a little bit of familiarization with the god. It's a very useful thing to do. So, here's the thing about the dash. The dash shows damage. 70 to 250 plus 60%, I believe. 138, alright? So here's what goes on with this ability. Is that it doesn't actually do damage at the end. The end is where the speed buff is. But you dash through your enemy and do damage to them. And if they're on the cusp of that circle, they will both take damage and slow. But it's a very finicky thing, and it's something you're probably only ever going to do on accident. So you can see right here the overlap on this corner. If I hit him right here, he'll get slowed, and he'll take some damage from my ability. Not much, obviously, because this isn't my ability-based damage build. And we're going to do that right now, actually, just to show you what kind of numbers you can actually get out of an ability-based damage build. Which, to be honest, is not a whole lot, but it can be kind of fun. So, first of all, I want to get a blessing. Mage's Blessing. Mage's Blessing gives you an additional physical power and magical power and ability damage. The magical power is obviously quite lost on a hunter like this, but this is a bit of a meme build, isn't it? So next, we're going to be going to go for Aussie, because it's going to give me that little bit of attack speed and physical lifesteal. So this would be the second item I would buy, right? And then let's see, we'll probably want Warrior Tabby, which I would buy first or second. Jotun's is definitely a core item because it's going to give me that additional physical power. So next, we're basically want to build all of the... So this one, and then this Mage's Blessing, we're going to eventually replace it. But the reason why I like to get it for these meme ability damage builds is because when it's evolved, it'll give you that additional CDR for free. All you got to do is kill minions and you get CDR. Okay, so first of all, we're going to shoot this Odin and see how much damage we do. And oftentimes with these penetration-based builds, you can actually do more damage than a crit-based build. The problem right now is that I'm built for ability damage. My abilities don't really do all that much damage, but they add up. So if I'm doing, what was that, 570 damage with my 1, while shooting 300s with my basic attacks, with his mitigations, it's still going to be able to quickly kill him. And one way you can actually improve upon this is to incorporate some tankier items in your build. So if I'm going up against a physical heavy team or something like that, you can use Hide of Nemean Lion. You can use the Sledge. I actually really like the Sledge because it has CCR, cooldown, or crowd control reduction, and it's going to give you 10 physical protections and 10 magical protections for each enemy god that's near you. So you can grab that. And then we'll say, okay, so Heartseeker makes my abilities do additional 2% of target's maximum health. But Hydra's Emblem makes my attacks after abilities do additional damage. So maybe instead of that, I'll do something like Shifters. And now you've got yourself a bit of a beefier Apollo. 2,290 damage. It's not a whole lot, but it's a decent amount for a hunter. So now my basic attacks aren't doing much, but my abilities are hitting a little bit hard. And he's really not hitting me hard at all. Let's see how I fare against Aneath, who's no doubt built towards damage. Still very doable. Now, obviously, when I'm 1v1ing an AI, it's a lot simpler. Players are wildcards. Players do whatever they feel like. Players don't want to die. AI doesn't care if they die. They're just going to march towards you straight to their death. That's another thing that you got to remember. Also, look at this funny glitch with the dead gods. Okay, so the final build approach that I'm going to go over is more of a movement speed focused build. And this one's a lot of fun because people don't usually see it coming. And they usually don't know how to react either. The problem with that is that hunters don't have a lot of movement speed options. So, you have two options. You just grab whatever has movement speed on it and build like an idiot. Which, honestly, is not horrible because now I have 3,000 health. I'm a bit tankier. And I'm honestly pretty fast. I don't do much damage though, which is the only downside. But I bet I can just chip away at her and kill her before she gets me. But this is a meme build. You really shouldn't do this build seriously. It's not really something that you want to seek out. It's not a great build, but it is something that's fun to mess around with and mess around with people with. And then there's a secondary meme build that I like to do, where I'll build, let's see, so sovereignty. Okay. Okay, now this is going to function a little bit differently against magical damage, because I am built towards physical protections, but it's still going to be quite nice. As I said before, Apollo can be quite beefy. It's going to take a while to build yourself up to that point, but it's very doable. That's really the last thing I wanted to cover. I will also mention that when you can afford them, don't forget about these potions. They are awesome. You get these and this. And then we're going to sell some of these really quick just to show you the amount of boost you can get. Okay, actually, let me show you what would happen if we did this. With the potions, so don't forget to diversify your builds, don't forget to think about who you're fighting, and don't forget to take into account the different damage types you're going to be trying to block. Don't forget to take into account the fact that Apollo can be quite tanky, and don't forget those potions, they can boost your damage quite significantly. You want to mix pen with your crit builds, but you don't want to just build every crit item, it's not always going to work. Not that it's never going to work, but it's not always going to work. And try not to build the same build every game, because it's not going to work every time. None of these exact builds that I put in here are necessarily builds that you should be copying to the letter. These are things that you should be building based on what you're fighting against. If you're fighting against somebody who's building straight physical protection, you're going to need a lot of physical penetration to get through to them. So you're going to want to come back in here and get all these pen items. Not necessarily this or this, but you know what I mean. Executioner is a great option. I didn't even grab it. Executioner is great on Apollo. So just make sure that you're diversifying your builds and thinking about what you need to use and what you need in what situations. That said, CDR is almost never a bad idea unless you're playing something like cooldowns run F over, in which case CDR is completely useless because all of your abilities have max cooldowns already. Besides that, don't forget to diversify your relics. Most of the time I see people buying things like Aegis. I personally never buy Aegis. I don't even die that much because I find out that most of the time in situations where I would have used Aegis, I could have simply completely avoided them by using purification beads and getting out of there in the whole first place. So instead of, getting ulted by someone and going, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna use Aegis, and then you die anyways, or you miraculously survive long enough for your teammates to come help you, and it's a waste of time. I don't like Aegis. The only times I've seen Aegis legitimately useful is when getting solo ulted, maybe a Nuwa ult, when you can only take one more tower shot and you're on your way out and you're almost there and you Aegis that tower shot. Those are some key moments where I can see Aegis being useful, but otherwise you're limiting yourself and your options. You're gonna die more if you have Aegis. So you want to get purification beads. You get grabbed by a Xingqian ult? No. You get grabbed by a Sobek if you time it correctly? No. You get grabbed by a Hercules? No. CC, 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 it doesn't matter. Discordia ult? No. you can always use purification beads as long as it's up, alright? And don't forget that. Purification beads will save you more than Aegis will. I also like to mention that these relics get really abused in the wrong way. Bracer of Undoing is fantastic, alright? Especially in combo with Meditation Cloak, you can completely mitigate any damage an enemy has dealt to you in a short amount of time. It's brilliant. If somebody crits you for 800, you could just use Bracer of Undoing and get that right back. It's quite nice. May not save you all the time, but it can definitely help. Frenzy is underused as well. It's nice, but it's only really useful when you're cooperating with a team. Maybe in Joust. Horrific Emblem does a nice little slow. It's great for getting out, but I prefer Blink. So the two that I buy the most are Blink and Purification Beads. I usually start with Purification Beads and get Blink second. I'm a very aggressive player, so Blink is fun to me. Alright? I don't recommend Aegis. I'll say it again. I don't recommend Aegis. But if you get Aegis, that's your play style. Do it. Make it work. But I'm telling you, you will survive more if you just figure out how to use Puri. Besides that, guys, that's all I've got for Apollo. This was a longer video. I wanted to make it short because he's very simple, but I ended up getting into a lot of mechanics talk. We'll see if next video I won't, not do that. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. What contrary opinions you have. How wrong I was about this or that. Let me know. And any requests for videos in the future, please post in the comments as well. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please remember to subscribe and click the bell notification. It makes me feel good and it makes me excited to make more content for you.